Okay, live again. I do not know how to get rid of this echo. I apologize right now for the quality. This is Streamlabs Talk Studio, which I have no idea how old this is, and based on the video quality, it looks like I'm coming at you from about 2004. Let's see, got it. If anyone shows up and can tell me how in the hell I can turn this echo off, that would be great. I'm, I just want to say this. Why has YouTube not actually built something like this? Why is this third-party software garbage lingering out there? Like, I'm pretty sure Google can make something better than most of what this stuff is. But anyway, so I'm attempting to change the settings here. Let me see if this works. Okay, I can't hear. No, I can still hear an echo. Huh. I'm attempting to find out how to actually set the sound up this thing, but I have no idea what's up. Apologies for being live with this one. Okay, that makes absolutely no. They hid the sound settings inside of a mute button. That awesome. Fucking idiots. All right. Sound a little better. It's clear now, but I can still hear myself. All right. I don't know where that hiss is coming from. Let's see if anybody in the stream's gonna. I also don't know why I have two different streams going on. Yeah, I was able to finally get it to switch over to my actual mic, but I can't not. I can't stop hearing myself in my own headphones, and there's no intuitive way to actually. Are there two live streams going? One is showing 9 people, and one is showing none. Okay, I'm not sure what that does. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. I think that did it. Let's try playing video and see what that does. I'm sure this thing is probably still picking up hiss, probably from the crap ass echo cancellation that it's got on it. Let's see here. Yeah, if the hiss is high, it's probably because the gain is kind of high. All right, let's give this a try and see what happens.
It's very reasonable to say that the majority of Haitians...
Is his sound coming through all right?
...believe in some version of voodoo. Fact. You can look this up. And you can say it's a lower percentage. In fact, I've seen as high as 70% of Haitians believe in the religion of voodoo. Of those 70%, a smaller proportion believe in animal sacrifice. And after they sacrifice, they eat the animal. This is true. So how often does that happen? I don't know. But let's say it's 10% of the time, or 5%, or even 1%. So if you, let's say it's 1%. If you import 20,000 Haitians, which I think are in that city, 20,000 times 1% is 2,200. That's 200 people. 200 people could potentially, at 1% voodoo rate of animal sacrifice, could be eating cats and dogs. I can just hear the left screaming at me right now. It's very...
So this was the point that I wanted to make before the last piece of shit software kicked me out and lost it. This one might too. This one has no streaming protections and has a video rate that I think is worse than a security camera. The issue, the two issues that he's bringing up here. First of all, just to nitpick, the math is wrong. It wouldn't be 1% of the 20,000. You would want to take 60 or 70% of the 20,000 and then do 1% of that. So it'd be what, 13, 14, 130, 140 people out of that mix. But that aside, you get the story problem correct. It doesn't follow that even if they're doing that, the animals in question are going to be the neighbor's pets, and that's what people are being accused of. They're eating cats and dogs. Cats and dogs are not consumed in voodoo rituals. It's just not a thing. Based on what I was able to find on it, there are people that engage in some of these rituals. They do like a community meal kind of thing. It's a pig, a goat, a chicken. Oftentimes chicken, or chickens. They have to deal with that, and kaparot on the Hasidic Jewish side. Maybe like a pigeon or a dove or something like that. But yeah, usually I think the top three are chicken, pig, and goat. Not pets, not cats and dogs, not kitties and puppies. So the fact that Doug is trying to be here, well, if you think about it, it's interesting because I think this is the same live stream where he acknowledges the horrible, bad, no good job that Trump did during the election. But he's trying to play apologist to these bullshit racist claims coming from him directly and from his idiot vice presidential candidate, J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance is spreading this in a town that he's a representative for. I mean, he's a senator for the state of Ohio, and Springfield has, got multiple facilities on lockdown because of racist ghouls that are responding to the bullshit that these two guys are shilling to keep them, relevant in the news cycle. So, yeah, it's not great, not a great look. But yeah, Doug is trying to be like, well, it's not unreasonable for people to be concerned. And what happened to me? Why did I just? Okay, that's disconcerting that I could just blink out like that. All right, I think I've made my point with this one, but I don't think I'll be using this software unless it's much better when and if you pay for it. But based on what they demo, this is also not good. So, yeah. Yikes. Is Doug a libertarian? No, not exactly. He's not exactly libertarian. I'm trying to see if I can get it to chat. Does it let me? Yes, it will. Okay. Let's see. Going to a pet store? Yeah, they're going to the pound. Yeah. There it is. Is Doug a libertarian? No. Um, he is basically a right-wing populist, but not a libertarian. He has libertarian leanings on certain things. Um, yeah, Hunter Biden's, he has libertarian instincts, but he's a card-carrying conservative. Yeah, but he believes in things like, he's not one of those capital L libertarians that thinks there should be absolutely no government spending on anything. And there are some libertarians that believe that even the military should be privatized. We don't spend any money on the government. Everything is private. But those guys are basically like, I mean, I'm pretty sure that their idea of America is something a little bit like medieval times. You know, it's going to be lords and ladies and castles and stuff. So, Doug took a political compass test, and I believe he got some sort of liberal. He has since been red pilling himself. That's true. My brother and I have talked about this a couple of times. He did do that, and he scored right about in the same spot that Hillary Clinton did. And ever since then, he's embraced more, especially culture war kind of stuff. So there was that one.
Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away, so stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
Do you believe in the mandatory buyback of quote-unquote assault weapons? And whether or not you do, how does that idea not go against fundamentally the Second Amendment?
Yeah, great question. I do believe that we need to do buybacks.
There are approximately 5 million, to your point, Craig. We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program. It's got to be smart. We got to do it the right way.
I support buybacks, and it's something I'm so passionate about and so looking forward to being president to address. We've got to deal with this.
How mandatory is your gun buyback program?
It's mandatory.
Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away, so stop with.
Okay, so Doug is also trying to stoke fears that Kamala Harris is coming for your guns, even though she's a gun owner and so is Walz. I would like to know from Doug how someone, does it follow that because someone is pro-gun buybacks that they are anti-gun ownership? Because you can be for both those things. You don't have to be, you know, some crazy Second Amendment. I wouldn't even say an absolutist. You just sort of the kind of Second Amendment type that believes that the government cannot take away your right to own guns, even if you're Hannibal Lecter, as Trump would like to say, the late great Hannibal Lecter. And it's all about you being able to defend yourself. A stance that the Supreme Court never held to until only recently, thanks to idiots like Samuel, like Alito and Scalia, mostly. That interpretation of the Second Amendment has now kind of carried the day, and it's ridiculous. They buy back, I believe, that buyback, I believe, was only for quote unquote assault weapons. Yeah, buybacks typically can be limited to, like sometimes they'll do a buyback on just handguns in cities. Hunting weapons need not apply, shotguns, rifles, that kind of stuff. It just depends on the context of each one that she's talking about. He's got like 3 different clips there, 3 different times she's talking about it. So, but even if it was just a general buyback, hey, you know what? We're trying to reduce the number of guns that individuals own in a municipality or in a state. Come here, you can sell them off. We buy them back off you, and then we make sure that they're recycled, disposed of, repurposed accordingly, and in a responsible way. That doesn't mean that people can't own guns. So this was a cute one from Doug, but I don't think, it's been a long time since I've heard some kind of goofball compare gun buybacks with gun confiscation. Like, this is Doug really, really hoping that he can juke like a red meat kind of response out of his fans. I don't think he's got a lot of respect for the conservatives that regularly watch his stuff, if he's trying to show this. Nitty, buybacks are voluntary, exactly. Like, and I think that the guys are like, they'd be mandatory. Like, I think she'd impose buybacks as being a mandatory thing that is done. Whether or not you sell your guns in a gun buyback is voluntary. So. Seizure is involuntary. Did Doug forget English? I mean, he'll just pretend it's because he's from Canada. Yeah, Hunter Biden. This is a dumb straw man. It is. I mean, even I'm not against gun ownership, but I have no problem with gun buyback programs, especially if you're talking about a city like Chicago where you just want to reduce the total number of guns in the city because you got a lot of dorks that are armed to the teeth. Yeah, you do a buyback program and exchange them for cash. See if you can reduce the total number of weapons that are running around. And they're usually, another thing too is that there are oftentimes, well, depending on the areas, there can be no questions asked. So it's a good way of getting rid of a murder weapon. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Breakfast Tacos is here. Good to see you. Sorry that you're here on a test stream. I'm just testing this streaming software out to see how it works. So far, not pleased. All right, but it is the free version. Maybe I'll pay for it, try a stream again and see how this works. But yeah, anyway, this is some of Doug's.
I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of...
Oh, no, I'm not playing.
Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
Vice President Harris, you seem to have fallen for the fake mainstream news that our own ABC has perpetrated. Donald Trump clarified his comments and condemned the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists. So please stop misleading the American people.
And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
He didn't condemn them. He said they should be condemned. He never actually condemned them. I don't know if Doug knows this.
But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis.
And he doubled down on the fact that there were okay people in there. They weren't all neo-Nazis. They weren't all white supremacists. They weren't all screaming blood and soil. Most of them were.
And white nationalists.
Let's remember Charlottesville.
Will she allow abortion in the 8th month?
Come on.
Oh, yeah. Here's a good one. So he posted this one a little while ago. I think I'll wrap it up with this one and keep this short because I have no confidence that this thing is not going to die on me. She said mandatory buyback. Yeah, the mandatory portion would, from a federal level, could be the government saying that states or municipalities need to have them. They need to make them available to the citizens. A mandatory buyback does not mean that you are mandated to sell your guns. It means that there is a buyback program mandated to occur to provide citizens with the opportunity to sell their guns. Now, if there needs to be some clarification there, if Doug has evidence that like her clarification is no, we're gonna, if you've got, how would they even do that? It wouldn't hold up. If you own 5 guns, you have to sell us at least 1 gun. Wouldn't hold up in court. That's not how that works. If there's a mandatory nature to a buyback program, the mandate is being imposed on the municipal government, the state government, or on the federal government itself to have those programs made available to the population. Wow, what a stretch. That's not a stretch. That's what it fucking means. That's what it means. They can't mandate a person give up a gun that they legally own. The person could just as easily sue them and say, this is a violation of my Second Amendment rights, and they would be right and they would win. If she wants to do a, quote, mandatory buyback and the way your fevered brain is working and the way that Doug is trying to sell that to people, the only way that works is if she somehow suspends a huge portion of what is now considered a recognizable portion of the Second Amendment as interpreted by the Supreme Court. It's not an interpretation I agree with, but it is standing now. So.
Okay, would you do that?
Veto.
Under Roe v. Wade,
Answer the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month.
not true.
And
No, actually, with Roe v. Wade, you couldn't. There were limitations on it. And in fact, there are activists that would rather not have Roe v. Wade encoded into law the way that it was written or the way that it was discussed and decided upon by the Supreme Court. They'd rather not have it go in there because it allowed the states to tighten up and limit it. It created these 24-week, a 24-week cutoff, a 20-week cutoff, a 15-week cutoff, a 10-week cutoff, etc. They could always kind of ratchet that down. There are activists that are like, we want to get away from that because that's not a great way of looking at how to ensure those protections and how to provide for that kind of care, especially when it comes to the medical community. Because if the medical community ends up hitting a situation with somebody, they're like, well, we hit the timeline according to the legislation. It's 20 weeks or 15 weeks. We can't do anything for her, so she's got to go to another country. She's got to go to another country, another state, whatever, because our hands are tied legally. They would rather avoid that, and I agree with them. But the idea going forward now, there are currently 9 locations in the United States, 8 states, and the city of Washington, D.C., that do not have gestational limits on elective abortion. So that is the case. Now, the amount of counseling or the availability of different processes or whatever available, I do not know. I'm not exactly sure. But they represent a minority of the states that actually have this kind of setup. So, and this video that he's going to show here, clipped quite a bit, is somebody talking to Care Clinic in Bethesda, Maryland. Maryland is one of the states that does not have gestational limits on abortion coverage. And so if Trump is correct, if Doug agrees with Donald Trump, then the states can decide. And so this state has decided there's no gestational limit, but I'm guessing Doug wants us to be against that now. So if we're against Maryland making that decision, who tells them that it's wrong? Trump? The federal government? I don't know.
Looking to have an abortion.
How far along are you?
I'm 34 right now. I am in a pretty desperate situation.
An abortion at any stage is actually much safer than delivering a term pregnancy.
That's often true because of maternal death rates.
We do what we call the fetal injection. A needle is inserted through the abdomen and into the fetal heart where lidocaine is injected, and that will completely numb the fetus so there's no pain. And then after that, we inject a medication called digoxin and another medication called KCL into the fetal heart, which will slow and then stop the fetal heartbeat. We specialize in later trimester care. Our doctor is very well versed in what he's doing, and he's very good.
So I'm not like a rare situation. Y'all help women this late in pregnancy all the time?
All the time.
And that is...
Will she allow abortion in the 8th month?
Will she allow it in the 8th month? Trump doesn't even understand the issue well enough to know what he's talking about. Because of the good decision that happened with Dobbs, the states make the decision. She doesn't allow shit. Neither does he. The states decide if they're going to allow the 8th month or the 9th month. Now, the one thing they can't allow for is some post-birth execution, because that's not the termination of a pregnancy, that's the execution of an infant at that point. Now, in the cases where they're dealing with a situation where the woman has given birth to the child, but the child is something that is essentially lethal. They're born with a heart outside their chest, an absence of a brain. That does happen, very rare, but it does happen. One of these kinds of situations, then they may take care of the fetus or the infant at that point, because without life support, it's going to pass away. I heard she'll allow it in the 17th month. Yeah, why not the 150th month? I mean, it's just, the whole thing is just, you can abort your kid up to the age of 17 and a half years old, But yeah, this idea is like, well, what's she going to allow? Dude, you already just missed the point. The whole point that you said that this is a great thing is that it's now up to the states. So if one state allows it to happen at like eight months in 1 week, that's up to them, right? The feds aren't deciding it. It's up to the states. So trying to like cast it on her, well, she'll just allow them to do it whenever. Well, you said that was the good thing about it. So yeah, this makes no sense. But it really is happening, Laurel. Yeah.
Why do you think women's sports?
I think this is
Crime is down all over the world except here.
As you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country.
Oops. Oops.
If you go through his streams and you actually made a drinking game out of the number of times Doug plays that particular sound file, you can have a good time. It's unsafe. This also is not entirely accurate. The data is correct. Some crimes have gone up, but like violent crime has gone down. Trump trying to like kick up this basic idea, all crime is up. Everything is turning into, we're 30 seconds away from turning into Somalia on a bad night. No, that's not true. And yeah, there's statistics to show that. Some are higher, some types of crimes are higher. A lot of violent crimes are down 12 to 18%, something like that. So yeah, not that big a deal. So just some more fear-mongering.
Since parents, you don't want to.
This one I find interesting. He just dropped this one. It is time to publicly shame, all caps, parents and kids what a real man sounds like, anti-woke, #school threats. So I'll play this and see what you guys think.
Raise your kids, I'm going to start raising them. Every time we make an arrest, your kid's photo is going to be put out there. And if I could do it, I'm going to perp walk your kid so that everybody can see what your kid's up to. The second point of this is, if I can any way find out that a parent knew what was going on and wasn't doing anything, your is getting perp walked with them. To keep sending in these tips over and over and over again and think it's a big joke and nothing's going to happen to it, we're going to publicly shame them and their parents. So parents, do your job. Don't let Sheriff Chitwood raise your kids. This is absolutely ridiculous. Go talk to the families who have lost a loved one in a school shooting. These little knuckleheads think it's funny. Go talk to those parents and see how funny this is. Since parents, you don't want to raise your kids, I'm going to start raising.
So this, the angry mustache here is reacting to the fact that they have a program in Florida called Fortify Florida where you can actually send in like tips. And I think what's been happening is like some kids, there's some splintered stories about this. They had like over a weekend, like 54 bogus threats come in. And so they have personnel running all over the place. And they said it cost them like within just like a weekend, it cost them over $21,000 to chase these things down. And now so what he's going to do is if he finds somebody that's doing this, finds a kid that's doing this, he's going to arrest them, publish their photo, either on a billboard or try to do it through the press, and then maybe even perp walk them. For those of you not familiar with that, a perp walk is where police escort the perpetrator in handcuffs in a public way outdoors in a way that they can be photographed by press. And you usually let the press know in advance when it's going to happen so they can get their shots and stuff. Perp walking anybody is fraught with problems, mostly because it's considered pre-punitive and has some issues with Fourth Amendment issues with the Constitution. So it's a little difficult to justify perp walking a lot of adults in most cases. Justifying the perp walking of an 11-year-old because they pranked a tip line specifically for school shootings, mass shootings, might be a little bit overreacting. But I can see why this guy's frustrated. One kid did get arrested. He was an 11-year-old kid, and he was sending photos of like fake weapons and stuff. And he had like he said it was a joke, but he even had a kill list. And so this guy was quite pissed at them. And I think they're going after the parents so that they can recoup the money that it cost them to run down the stuff that a couple of these kids were running up. I don't know what Doug thinks this has to do with being quote unquote anti-woke. I don't know how this has anything to do with woke. This is more about like how would you approach this from a criminal justice perspective, and how do you deal with criminal justice and kids. In the state of Florida, if the kid is charged with a felony, you can make their ID public knowledge. In most states, you can't do that. In Florida, you can. If it's a felony charge, I think if it's a misdemeanor, it has to stay. It's part of a juvenile record. But most states, any of these kinds of charges would stay a juvenile record, and they're usually sealed. But yeah, in Florida, he has the legal ability, I think, to do this. Should he do it? Yeah, probably not. I think he actually attempted the perp walk with the 11-year-old that he arrested. I don't know if they got any footage of him. I don't know if the press even bothered with it. One of the things that the press has been trying to do with standards now is not make a big deal out of the perpetrators of these kinds of things, and not even to mention their names. The idea is to emphasize the identities of the victims who were killed, and to minimize the names and the identities of the perpetrators, so that you can reduce a tendency towards copycats. And that's one of the things that I find kind of maybe, I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. But the idea that even making these threats get you a perp walk, get you some notoriety, you might be kind of providing the kid that's doing that with, I mean, it's more than what they asked for, but you might be making the situation a little worse. So that's just my 2 cents. But the idea that it has anything to do with being woke or anti-woke, I don't get it. I don't know what Doug is doing there. So with that, I'm going to drop this off and, you know, just let this be and let it percolate and see what it looks like later, and I'll evaluate. And then from there, I guess we'll, yeah, seems like an example of ACAB to me. We're going to do nothing to address the root causes of mass shootings, but we'll use violence against kids doing harmful pranks. I mean, kind of. I mean, I can see this guy's. I can sympathize with this guy's frustration, but I don't know that publishing their photos or trying to do something that's kind of pre-punitive, like a perp walk, is beneficial to the kid or even the community. Like it's questionable whether or not it's even beneficial if you're using this for a repeat offending adult. There's some real issues with that. So, and whether or not this is going to be effective or not, I feel like this is kind of going in the opposite direction, where you really blow up the reputation of the little shithead that you know, stirred up a bunch of trouble with a bogus threat. So anyway, I'm going to let you all go. Let's see how hard it is to actually get this. Okay, that actually kind of worked out, right? Yeah, I guess with that, I will be back later, hopefully with a more put together and solid stream, so that this is less awkward looking, because this one looks rough. But thank you all for showing up live. I hope you like and subscribe. Reach me at jeffersonspatchcock@gmail.com if you got any suggestions, comments, anything like that. Yeah, with that, I'm going to get out of here. I do not have the video to play myself out, so I'm just going to end my stream. I'll figure out how to customize this thing later when I have more patience, because right now, between this one and that last one that betrayed me, Evie Mux, I am not a fan. I do not like software, and I do not like learning new software. So have a great night, everybody, and I will catch you all next time. Take it easy.